mindset, I believe, behind putting up your strong side. So for everybody listening to me right now, I want you to take a moment to sort of pick things from this that resonate with you, because these are more or less the points that I believe are in the mind of the person who is trying to put the strong side before people, right? So the first thing that comes to my mind is childhood experiences. All right, so childhood experiences, if you didn't know, your subconscious mind rules 95% of your life. Every single thing that happens in your life as of now, the person that you are is because of your subconscious mind. It takes control of the entire course of everything that's happening. So everything that you do consciously, which is the decisions that you make on an everyday basis, and all of that only constitutes for like 5%. And your belief system, your subconscious, takes control of 95%. Now, another thing that you should know, that subconscious mind is basically the strongest, and it's created into the strongest side of your body in the first 1 to 7 years of your life. So the first 7 years of your life are very crucial. All the things that you've experienced during that time, you've picked up as beliefs, and everything around that sort of, you can say, are pretty much the reason why you are the way you are. So if as a child you remember being neglected, or being just like not being heard or not being acknowledged, you might have developed a tendency to sort of keep things to yourself. You feel like no one really wants to hear you, and that's why it's just easier to keep things to yourself. The second thing is seeking validation. I believe that the mindset of this person will always be seeking validation from other people around. They're always concerned about the judgment that comes with them being overly sensitive. And this was me at the beginning, like I was talking about in the beginning, right? That at some point, this is who I was. I was very concerned about how people would see me, how people would perceive me. And that's where the need for validation came in. Next is being misunderstood. I believe that, of course, when you want to put up a very strong foot, where you're coming from is you believe that you're always misunderstood. You always sort of want to say something else, but then people perceive you as something else. So it's much more safer, it's much more comfortable to sort of stay in this zone where you just don't speak your heart out and step into your authenticity. Next is defense mechanism. Now, this is very interesting because a lot of people put up a strong front as a defense mechanism because they've been hurt in the past, and they don't want to feel those emotions just once again. And to avoid those emotions, they use being a like putting their strong front as a defense mechanism. They want to create this barrier that sort of keeps them away from all of that hurt and not want to experience it again. The next is highly sensitive. Now, ironically, the strongest people who tend to put up a strong front are one of the most sensitive people, because truly the reason that they are not being vulnerable is because there is so much that is inside of them. There's so much they want to share, but they're just not wanting to share that because of all the reasons that I now mentioned. Not wanting to get hurt and not wanting to be misunderstood. But they are truly one of the most sensitive people that you'd come across. And the last one is victim of the past. Now, people who, it's very interesting because if you are someone who's trying to put up a strong front, it's very likely, of course, that you are being a victim of your past. You're holding on to the emotions that you felt in the past. You're holding on to the patterns that you've experienced in the past. And it keeps you connected to the past, because it always keeps you reminding that, hey, this is why you should not be vulnerable. This is why you should not express this side of you. And this is why you just should put up this act where you're just like so confident and so strong in front of people, because you remember what happened before, right? So these are the stories that we keep telling ourselves that keep us very grounded to sort of just put the strong front before. Now, what are the consequences? I want to talk about that for a second. What are the consequences of actually being this person who is holding back, who is not being vulnerable, and who's putting up a strong front? The first thing that comes to my mind is, of course, keeping the very close connect to your past, staying a victim to your past. All right. Now, I talk a lot about manifestation and energy, right? Everything is energy. So you need to understand one thing, that in order, when I talk about energy, there's something called as old energy and new energy. When you stay connected to your past, you are always bringing the old energy back into your life, and you're also calling and asking for more of it. So if you're someone who is still thinking about what happened 10 years ago or what happened as a child and all those things, you are very well creating the same kind of experiences into your life as of now as well. The second big consequence that I want to talk about is your relationships. Nothing ever will affect your life as much as in the area of relationships when it comes to vulnerability, when it comes to keeping a strong front. Because think about it. Think about the relationships. Like if you have been in a relationship that sort of did not really go your way, and it had something to do with everything that I am talking about right now. Because when you don't accept and heal the parts of you, your own self, it will always be mirrored back into your relationships. It will always be, and not just relationships with your partner, but with any other relationship for that matter. Because when you're not willing to step into your own power by sharing how you feel, you will always either give a wrong impression, or you will call for just a wrong perception by someone else. It'll just be that hazy, blurry picture. You will giving the person the wrong ideas, and you will make yourself this person who's very difficult to understand. Like people could perceive you as someone who's very difficult to understand because you're saying something, you're feeling something else. And that's why your relationships would suffer the most when it comes to vulnerability and keeping a strong front. Moving ahead, I want to now talk about why I believe vulnerability is power and is inevitable. Trisha, I think it's a slide before this. Why vulnerability is power and is actually, it's inevitable, right? I believe vulnerability is synonymous to stepping into your authenticity. Okay. They just go hand in hand. When you say vulnerable, it means authentic. And what do you do when you actually step into this vulnerable version of you? You take the power that you have given to everybody around you back into your own hands. Like Asta was talking about, right, that vulnerability is not to be seen as something that's a weakness. And why would you perceive that is because you have given away that power to so many people. When you are talking about how will I be perceived by people, when you're talking about how will people think about me, what are they going to talk about me, how are they going to judge me, your power is not with you. You've given it away in like with different sort of people, and you've given them the chance to sort of rule what goes on in your mind. As a mindset and manifestation coach, I can tell you one thing, that the biggest favor that you will ever do to yourself is to protect your energy. Everything is energy. How you're feeling right now dictates the next moment that comes into your life. So if you are going to let people decide how you feel, you will always be at the mercy of how they want your life to shape out. Think about that for a second. Because if I sit here today and I am not doing something just because of the judgments of somebody else, I am sort of holding myself back from stepping into something that could turn me into the person that I was always meant to be. And it's inevitable at some or the other point, you will have to step into this authenticity. Because I think in everybody's life there comes a point where experiences sort of force you to step into this very uncomfortable zone where you're forced to take this power back. It could be a relationship, it could be a life experience, it could be anything. But at the end of the day, we are humans who run on emotions. And that's what we seek. That's what we seek every single time and everywhere, right? So it's inevitable, because you will at some point need to feel the emotions that you've always wanted to feel. And that's why vulnerability is your biggest power. When you take that